Thank you so much, Ranjit, and thank you all for being here today. Appreciation to Phil for his comments and for facing up to some difficult questions earlier on. Credit to you for that. So I listened carefully, Phil, to your description of the work that we've been engaged on jointly over the piece, and absolutely would endorse all of the programs and initiatives that Phil has talked about. We look forward, Phil, to the publication of the professional standards report. My last information was it would be around the end of this month, but you may be able to update us on that. That's an important piece of work that we spent a good deal of time on. And I think it was quite remarkable that the KC who had been charged with running that particular project was a lot more time than we thought we'd have at the start, and listened intently as we relayed the sorts of issues that we're going to cover here today. So there's still much to be done, quite clearly, but I remain disappointed. You know, it's been 14 years since I came on board to Napo, and I've yet to see a discernible increase in a number of senior leaders within the probation service, and CAFCAS for that matter as well. And sadly, Katrina would have joined us today to give a perspective from a senior management point of view for CAFCAS, but she's unwell, so we miss her and we wish her well. I want to just quickly say thank you to Jed Greby. Some years ago, I heard there was a show, Races in the Red Card event, at my beloved Millwall Football Club in South London. Most of you will have heard of Millwall, and you probably get a view about it, which is totally unfair. But the point being, there was a charity match between ex-professionals and MPs. Now, having known quite a few MPs, I thought I might blag a few minutes on the pitch, you know, just to satisfy my bucket wish list. And I was a good deal fitter and lighter in those days. Anyway, long story short, it was the ex-professionals that were delayed somewhere in the Blackwall Tunnel, and Jed said, get a shirt on, lad, and go in with the ex-professionals. My goodness me, I'd never played so well in all my life. And I come away from that thinking 85% completion rate, looking quite good, over and above my limited skills. But thanks, Jed. That's one for the bucket list there. And to Nick at Hope Not Hate, what a courageous mission you and your colleagues embarked on all those years ago. And you will know probably, I expect Nick and his colleagues look over their shoulders most times of the day because of the way they've exposed the racists and fascists in our society, and the revelations that racism hasn't gone away and the rise of the far right is something we need to take very seriously indeed. So thank you, Nick, for all your fantastic work. Very quickly, my history within the trade union movement obviously has been one of opposing racism, sexism, misogyny, all the isms you can think of. And I like to think I've made a contribution there. Most recently, I was a member of the TUC Anti-Racism Task Force, and I chaired the public sector group on that, which reported to the wider report. And again, some report, I haven't got time to go through all the recommendations, and they're there and we can publish them again. But, you know, still work to do. It's never ended. But I was proud to be part of that and represent Napo. But Ranjit, what I wanted to do, perhaps a little bit unconventionally, is maybe just take you back a little around my own journey in encountering racism, because there are people of colour here clearly today. There are women here who probably face misogyny and sexism as everyday part of their life. But there are people here not of colour who've never suffered racism. Why would you? And I remember trolling the streets of South London as a 5-year-old, the son of an immigrant worker from India, an English mother, walking around the streets looking for rented accommodation, getting funny looks from passers-by. And I couldn't quite get it. But I was old enough to read. And then I understood, because the signs in the windows said, no blacks, no Jews, no Asians, no Irish wanted here. And I quickly discerned that life was going to be something of a challenge. Then we eventually found a council flat, and it didn't get better because most of the families that had moved to that area in South London had come from war-torn parts of London. And their parents' attitudes towards people of colour was, let's say, questionable in many cases. And I found myself one of the only young kids of colour in our block. I was an easy target. Some of you of colour may remember this as well. When you're growing up, when you're isolated, when you don't feel comfortable, the physical abuse, the verbal abuse. Didn't get better in school either. Despite having gone to a faith school where I expected better, I encountered the same. And the attitudes of staff, indifference of staff, to when I went to them saying, I've been bullied, sir or madam, can you help me? It was appalling. But it made you tough, because that's the only way to go, isn't it? Fall down and feel sorry for yourself, or actually fight back. Now, there's fighting back, and there's physically fighting back. And as I got bigger and as I got older, I had more than my fair share of playground tear-ups with my would-be oppressors. And suddenly it started to ease off. It, being racism, started to ease off because they realised that someone was prepared to stand up for themselves. So that helped me. And the reason I'm relaying this to you is that it was a strengthening experience. But the reason I'm finding it difficult to talk about is that when I have seen what has happened on the streets of Britain recently, it has triggered those emotions again. You can see it is now. So I found my way into the world of work, where for the first time, I was treated with respect and dignity by older adults who were prepared to mentor me, were prepared to listen to issues. And I found that a very cathartic experience. Then I found my way into the trade union movement. And I thought, hey, presto, this is great. You know, I'm in an inclusive environment now, and it's going to be wonderful. And it was at branch and local level. But then something really weird happened. And I won't name names or unions, but in 1983, I got elected to the National Executive Committee. And I remember making my first contribution at that meeting, where people would just sit there reading the newspapers. Because A, I was young, one of the youngest to be elected, and B, they didn't think I had a message worth listening to. Worse than that, there were snide comments made over their newspapers about my colour and my race, and of course, the fact I didn't have a qualification to my name. I'm proud of the fact I've come so far, despite that. But I'm relaying this to you because in that day and age, 1983, to encounter that sort of thing was horrendous. But again, what was the choice? Laugh it off, take it on the chin, or do something. So what I did was work with underrepresented members on that NEC, women particularly, formed an equal opportunities subcommittee, got elections to that committee, and started to change the culture of that union so that it became something much, much different 10, 15, 20 years later when it started to merge with other trade unions. And the last union it became was PCS, where I proudly worked alongside a range of people on anti-racism initiatives. So look, that's a condensed account of what I had to face. It's funny, as I got older and started to travel abroad to places like Turkey and India and Greece and all sorts of places, I didn't get hassled for money. I didn't get asked to go into shops because I looked like one of the brothers, basically. All good, all good. But I know that what we've seen and the rise in the far right and how we've seen reform latch on to the benchmark problems of poverty, because that's the great leveler, isn't it? Let's not assume that everybody who votes for reform are racist necessarily. There's two types of racist in my book. They're the terrorists who organise societal disorder on our streets and use the media for their own insidious ends. And there's people who don't know any better. And there are people who are angry. You must meet them in your everyday work. I didn't want to get involved in that riot, but no one listens to me. It's the only way I could get my voice across. And we ignore that at our peril. And Nick, I'm sure you've seen this in a lot of your work. We have to find a way, and that's why we have to work with the employers, with government, to find solutions to start getting people out of the poverty trap, and that will start to make that difference. So look, I'll leave it there, Ranjit. I think we've got a lot to talk about. Thank you.